What's going on, guys? Today I'm doing a video on Dark Souls 2, specifically the idea of hope and despair as this character talks about it. There's one character here where he's like giving up hope, and I want to play his dialogue for you, and then I'm going to come back and do commentary on it.
Those who come to Drangleic seeking salvation soon lose hope and turn hollow. It happens to them all, sooner or later. That Blue Knight at the base of the tower, his spirit is already broken. Although he does offer sound advice. Perhaps he is a foreshadowing of your own future.
This is Majula. It is a kind of settlement. A place where life is almost normal. And in Drangleic these days, there are very few places like that. I am Soldan. And like you, I lost everything. And now I'm here. You probably heard that it was possible to break the curse here. Well, that's not true at all. There's nothing here for you, me, or anybody. There are 4 beings in this land with giant souls. And wherever you go from here, you'll sooner or later come up against them. Each has a powerful soul and a terrible curse. If that frightens you, then you ought to just give up right now, like I have. So much about souls. Even I'm not certain, but I'm told that the soul is the essence of life itself. Anything living, sentient or no, supposedly has one. What we call the curse is traceable to the soul. Do you see what that means? To be alive, to walk this earth. That's the real curse, right there. Do you feel lonely here? It suits me just fine, as I've nothing left anyway. It will grow on you, this place. Give it some time.
Alright, so after all that, we're just going to take it one step at a time and walk through it. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Oh, there's so many things I want to say. Let's just start here, start right at the beginning. Those who come to Drangleic seeking salvation soon lose hope and turn hollow. So, in the game, turning hollow is, from what, I'm not a Dark Souls expert, like lore expert, so don't, attack me over this. But turning hollow is you meet other people, they're not actually players, but you meet other people in your journey on the game who are hollows. They're basically humans who lost hope, apparently, and I think it's technically in, like, if you die so many times, like, you can't die, they're unable to die, they keep dying, and every time they die, which is kind of symbolic in and of itself, every time they die, they lose a little bit more humanity. But the main connection there, for me, is hollow and lack of hope. So that's the despair message. And that's obviously what that guy was expressing at the monument. He's basically, everything he says was about how hopeless this all is. And, I'll get to it when it comes around. But the game is breaking the fourth wall with this. Because it's speaking to you on multiple levels. From a game perspective, the right next to that guy, that soldier who's speaking about despair and all that, there's a monument that has the total player death count, of all the people who play this game. And Dark Souls is a franchise that has a reputation of being hard, like a difficult video game. It makes sense that they have the guy who's talking about giving up right next to a monument that displays how many times players have died. So like the game's actually really almost talking to you from a gameplay level, but it's also talking to you from like an actual, true human level. Anyways, those who come to Drangleic seeking salvation soon lose hope and turn hollow. So the lack of hope is what makes you hollow. It happens to them all sooner or later. And again, I have something that's going to come up. It's not relevant to it's not necessarily from Dark Souls, but it's a picture from a manga. I'll show you later. Actually, you know what? Since it's right here, I'll bring it up right now. So right here it says, with manga you read it right to left. So what he means is that even if you multiply, the substance won't change, so it's useless. In the end, you and I are just powerless shinobi. One day you'll also know everyone. One day you'll also know everyone will become like me. I won't become like you. How many times do I have to say I want to be Hokage? Don't worry, everything will go fine. There is no ninjutsu in this world that can surpass the infinite Tsukiyomi, so vanish together with this world. Anyways, Obito, he's one of the main villains, final villains of the series, and him and this other guy named Madara, they're trying to implement an attack called the Infinite Tsukiyomi. I hope you guys can get around these words. The words are irrelevant. Just think about what the bad guy's saying and what their goal is. The words can be changed and the meaning doesn't change at all. That's why you can look for patterns in different stories, even if the names of specific things and people are different. It's the same spirit, it's the same essence. But their plan is to basically abandon this world, because here we have the lack of hope again, right? The lack of hope, which is kind of what Naruto represents. He he's the Jesus of the story. He is hope. He's the personification of hope. He's symbolic of it. He's like a hero. He's a legend. And that's kind of what the Hokage is, or at least in his mind, that's what it is. But that's what the Infinite Tsukiyomi is. It's a dream world. They want to create a matrix, a dream world, because this world sucks so bad. We're powerless shinobi or powerless humans. We can't do anything about it. The cycle of war is going to continue forever. And, he has other quotes like, I'm just going to replace the word shinobi with humans. He says, humans created these circumstances. It's never going to stop happening as long as people are people and there's no hope. So we just have to basically abandon the whole thing. And that's the attitude of, the despair attitude. It's kind of like he's going hollow in a way. I just wanted to talk about that now. See, she says it all happens to them sooner or later. And it's kind of like, that statement is almost like, time is going to get you at some point. Life is going to beat you down. It's going to beat the spirit out of you. It's going to beat the hope, the optimism, the dreams, the creativity, the curiosity, the heart out of you at some point. Just, it's like, whether that's when you lose somebody death-wise, or you get taken advantage of or betrayed or whatever, it's going to suck the goodness out of you. So, she's saying, so many people have tried to do this stuff. It all happens to them sooner or later. You're going to go hollow. The Blue Knight at the base of the tower, his spirit is already broken. So that's another thing. The word spirit and the word hope function, they're not exactly the same, but you can almost think of them in similar terms. I did a video a long time ago called Pentagram Symbolism, and I was showing how the top point, or like the inverted pentagram that the Satanists use, the top point is spirit. If it's upright, well, the Satanists point it down, so spirit is pointed down. And how I interpret that, one way I interpret that is, they're basically cutting off spirit. They're saying there is no hope, there is no God, there is no... and the analogy I was using was with a drug addict. It was a video of Russell Brand talking to a girl who was a drug addict, and he was like, it really is possible for you to turn this around, and I can really see you living life, being happy, feeling free and stuff, and the look on her face is just like, yeah, you're crazy. I can't even imagine that as a possibility for myself. She's given up hope. She's basically hollow. I'm not saying anything mean about her, but it's just, you have to be able to believe in the possibility or in the hope that something can be different than the way it is. And when you point that spirit downwards, you're cutting that off. You're saying that's obsolete. And why a villain would say that, if you want examples of why a villain would say that, I can make a video on that too. But a classic example would be Bane from the Dark Knight, whatever one, the Christian Bale one where Bane's in it. I forget what that is. Dark Knight Rises, maybe. But he's giving him that speech while Bruce Wayne's in the pit where he's got to climb out. Bane was talking about how that prison's the worst ever because prisoners are given a slim hope that they can get out through the light at the top. Supposedly, I don't know if you've seen this movie, but the prisoners can escape through the light at the top of the prison, like if they can muster up the physical ability to do it. And he's saying that dangling that carrot in front of them, giving that hope, is actually worse torture than if you just didn't give them any at all. That's why he hates the idea of hope, which is kind of why I say, like, that's, like, it's not just mean to, like, it's someone who's had their spirit broken and, like, their heart hurt and stuff, and, like, pain is taken over, but there's also, like, a utility factor to them wanting to cut off the idea of hope. Because it's like, okay, instead of just giving people another chance, and hoping they'll change, let's just say, screw it, they're not going to change, and let's progress. Let's basically force them to progress directly. I hope that makes sense. I know I'm going off a rant. This is about Dark Souls, but to me it all connects very easily. Although he does offer sound advice. Right. Perhaps he is a foreshadowing of your own future. See, and this is where the game is like almost breaking the fourth wall. It's like, again, it's speaking to you from a purely gameplay mechanic, but it's also speaking to you as a human, I think, at least. At least that's how I experience video games and movies and stories. This is the only Dark Souls game I've ever played. I know people are going to hate that if you're like a hardcore fan, because people say this is the worst one out of the three, but whatever, you know, I don't know. I'll play the other ones eventually, but this is the only one I played. And this part of the game stuck with me. But she's saying how it breaks the fourth wall gameplay-wise, like I said, perhaps he's a foreshadowing of your own future. That monument right here, that in the top right corner, is, like I said, gives the death count of the players. It's basically saying you're probably going to give up, because this game has a reputation of being pretty difficult. I don't know. Yeah, it's just saying that Blue Knight could be you. Like, you could just be giving up yourself. Happens to us all sooner or later. Anyways, let's move on. This is Majula. It is a kind of settlement, a place where life is almost normal. And in Drangleic these days, there are few places like that. I am Salden, and like you, I lost everything. Now I'm here. So again, someone who is, you know, a lot of the times I was saying the satanic example of the spirit being broken. There is like some evil spirit behind that, but it's also this too. It's also, and like you, I lost everything and now I'm here. And what I mean by that is it's also pain. It's not, I'm not saying it's just pain, and just because someone is evil because of pain doesn't justify their evil deeds, because they still did something evil. So, you know, even if, you know, your mom died and you turned into like a crazy man and like you want to hurt people and stuff or something like that, doesn't make it okay that you hurt people just because the origin of that anger and resentment at reality was something painful. But it does help you empathize with them. And, you know, a lot of times there's famous paintings, for example, of Lucifer with a tear in his eye, or in Dante, or the Divine Comedy, Satan's frozen at the bottom, the ninth layer of hell, or whatever it is. And he's got, like, frozen tears and stuff. And to me, that's why devil characters would be seen crying, is that element I just described to you. Not that he's a devil character or anything, but you probably heard that it was possible to break the curse here. Well, that's not true at all. There's nothing here for you, me, or anybody. One thing to say about this area, Majula, it's kind of like a limbo area in the game, worth pointing out. Like, there's no danger here, but like, you're safe, but you can't progress the game if you just stay here. So you just kind of, like, it's weird. This guy exists in some kind of like purgatory limbo. Like, you just stay here, but you can't like get anything done at the same time. It's kind of like almost being in like, it's kind of like being a coward in a way. Like, I mean, he's given up, but it's also being like afraid to go out and the game does a good job of intimidating you just from a purely gameplay mechanics like perspective. This game like is hard, especially if you don't use summons, which lets you call in like computer controlled helpers to help you fight. If you do the game without that, it's pretty hard, especially for someone who's never played this stuff before. And it makes you not want to go out to the next area in a way, and like I understand why you would want to hang out in the limbo forever in a way. There are 4 beings in this land with giant souls. And again, he was just saying stuff like, there's nothing here for you, me, or anybody. It's just, you know, there's nothing here. There's no potential. There's no possibility. You can't break the curse. And the curse, like I said, is I think in Dark Souls, the curse is the inability to die. Entropy towards being of humans into hollows. Something like that. I mean, again, I'm not an expert, so if someone can correct me if they ever watch this and they're a Dark Souls guy. 4 beings with giant souls, and wherever you go from here, you'll sooner or later come up against them. Each one has a powerful soul and a terrible curse. If that frightens you, then you ought to just give up right now, like I have. Ha ha ha. The whole 4 giants and stuff, I can't really translate that into anything outside of like, into like real life or into anything meaningful, but just the, you'll sooner or later come up against, if you leave this area, you're sooner or later going to come up against trouble. And it's going to be big trouble. And if that frightens you, then just give up and stay right here in this little limbo area, you know? This guy's it's really like, I don't know. I like this character. He's done it. They did a good job expressing like despair through this character. And it's all, like I said, they're literally almost, they're talking to you as a player and as a person. At least that's how I see it. Do you know much about souls? This is one that's going to get a little weird. Even I'm not certain, but I'm told that the soul is the essence of life itself. Anything living, sentient or no, supposedly has one. What we call the curse is traceable to the soul. Do you see what that means? To be alive, to walk this earth, that's the real curse right there. That's the ultimate statement on despair, is life itself is a curse, which a lot of the occult stuff points to that. Not that it's not even just occult, but even spirituality, because if you think about it, you have a soul that's eternal and that's above all your human temptations and faults and everything, and your soul's in this flesh, and your flesh makes mistakes, and it's tempted and it sins, and it, you know, people think Christianity is the only one that talks about that, but like pretty much every spiritual teaching teaches that man is not basically fundamentally good, but they have a soul, and you're supposed to try and detach from the world as much as possible. You know what I mean? And like, you know, like I said with the Saturn thing, the word matrix means womb, and it's, you can think of that as your soul hitting the flesh. Boom, you're in your body. Now you're cursed with in the 3D realm. You're in the matrix as soon as you're born, basically. And that's probably not a good way to think about life. But, and also another thing with that Saturn stuff, people claim, there's no way for me to tell you I know what happens when you die, because I don't think anyone knows until it happens to them. But people have talked about it and thought about it for a long time, and it makes you scratch your head. Anyways, they'll talk about, you know, being caught in a loop when you die, and the goal being able to escape that loop, to not have to come back here. Which, if you think about it, in this game is kind of like the Hollow curse, because aside from that just meaning no hope, in the game, technically, I'm pretty sure, like I said, it means you can't die. Like, if you die as this character, for example, you'll come back, but you'll be a little more, like, ugly looking and a little more zombified looking. You'll look a little less human. But you'll come back, and you keep coming back, and you keep coming, and you won't be able to die. So, I don't know, that could be a possible connection. Anyways, it's just, to me, to be alive, to walk this very earth, that's the real curse right there. That's to me, that's like the end point logic of a despair philosophy. And think about someone, like I showed you with the Obito thing or whatever. If you have like a no hope perspective as a baseline foundation, what are you going to build up on top of that? Well, you're going to build up a philosophy that thinks you're doing people a favor by killing them or by enslaving them, mostly by killing them, because if being alive is a curse, well, maybe you're doing them a favor. You know what I mean? Okay, so now he says, do you feel lonely here? It suits me just fine. I have nothing left anyway. It will grow on you, this place. Give it some time. Okay, so again, it just goes back to the Majula hub area in the game being sort of like a limbo purgatory where you can just sit there and not be in danger, but also you're not going to change anything, you're not going to progress, you're not going to, you just sit there and wallow. Yeah, I don't know, that's what he's doing. Majula's like comforting, but it's also like depressing at the same time. It has that kind of vibe to it. Here's another thing that's not Dark Souls related, but it's called Hollow, and so like it's from the anime called Bleach. I've never seen the show, but someone brought this to my attention but it falls right in line with exactly how that guy was saying, in a way. So listen, Hollow are former pulses, deceased human souls who lose their hearts to despair or regret, or they remain in the human world for too long. Any spirit who is not guided to the soul society by a Shinigami via Kanso may eventually turn into a hollow. So, lose their heart to despair or regret. So, again, the heart is highly symbolic. The heart is like symbolic of pretty much the hero. Like, that's why Jesus is pointing at the Sacred Heart. There's another game I'll post where it's a dumb game called Guacamelee, where the guy you play is like a luchador, Mexican wrestler. He's got the Sacred Heart tattooed on him, and you go up against a dragon, and he's calling in the Black Sun to start his new world order. It's ridiculous how this stuff's in a video game, and it just goes to show that's a constant rivalry. Heart is on the other end of despair. Whatever, and despair is on the side of like the Black Sun and all that stuff, whatever that is, who lose their hearts to despair or regret. And then there's, let's see, the majority of ghosts peacefully move on to the soul society after their death. However, some stay in the living world to fulfill certain goals, such as looking after a loved one, protecting a particular location, or pursuing a grudge from beyond the grave. However, with only limited abilities to interact with the living, and by definition tied to their goals, many ghosts find they are unable to cope when their loved ones move on or old enemies forget them. At this point, some will become dangerously obsessed with fulfilling these goals. Okay, so someone who loses their heart to despair or regret, but also someone who can't move on. So that's something to think about. I don't have too much commentary on that, but someone who can't move on, that has to cling to this place. And again, like I said, most religions will teach you that you're not supposed to do that. Like one of the most famous, the Sermon on the Mount. Lay not your treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and thieves break through and steal, but lay your treasures upon heaven, or up in heaven, because where your treasures are, so there will your heart be also. And saying like, don't have all your values and stuff and your character tied into this place. Place them way above money, way above sex, way above reputation, place them on the eternal things, not the temporal things. And there will your heart be also, so it'll actually shape your character. Anyways, that's Bible stuff. That's not necessarily, but to me that's almost like kind of related to the inability to move on. What does it mean to be hollow? In the world of Dark Souls, going hollow means losing the vestige of humanity as you succumb to the undead cursed. Most humanoid enemies the player meets are hollows, barely more than aggressive animated corpses. So losing your humanity, think about what that could even mean. Think about that for yourself. Like in another show where JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, when the main bad guy Dio, who is Saturn, I've done a video on that, all the things that tied around him link him to Saturn symbolism. He turns into a vampire, and before he does it, he says, "I reject my humanity." So like whatever that means, again, it's like giving up hope. It's like giving your baby to Moloch. It's like giving your baby to Baal. It's like giving your baby to Saturn. To me, that's the same thing about. I mean, you know, in this one, they're not necessarily willingly giving it up like in those illustrations, but they're just losing their humanity. It's what I described earlier in a way where I think, you know, the world beats you down, sort of thing, and you lose hope, lose your humanity, or your empathy, your care for other people, things like that. You just become apathetic, you know, things like that. Most humanoid enemies the player meets are hollows. So, like I said, in the game, you'll fight enemies, and they're literally not other players, but like that's how the story is set up. They're saying, oh, those were other humans who were trying to do what you're doing, but they failed, and now they're just, you know, zombified, and they're actually going to try and stop you too. So not only did they give up, but they're going to try and stop you as well by trying to kill you in the game. And I mean, you can think about that however you want. And another thing, barely more than aggressive animated corpses, like, if you don't really think about, you know, where your heart is and what you care about and who you want to be, you know, you kind of are the Walking Dead. Like, if you have no direction, no purpose, no idea of who you are or where you want to go, and you're kind of just a husk that gets, like, information programmed into it, in a way, you are kind of like the Walking Dead. I've heard Mark Passio, a guy that I've listened to in the past. I haven't listened to him for a while, but he's pretty smart. You should probably give him a listen. I have like 2 compilations of him on here. But he used to work with dark occultists or whatever, and he said one of the names that they would call the general population is the dead. That's how they would refer to the average man or woman walking the street. Basically a know-nothing fool hobbling around, not knowing who he is, where he's going, why things are the way that they are, things like that. Just as an insult. And I mean, who knows if some powerful guy really said that, but to me that's irrelevant. Lastly, there's a quick message about Don't You Dare Go Hollow. That's from the Dark Souls, I think, official Twitter. They just tweeted that, meaning don't give up hope. So that's the final message. And from what I understand, a character actually says that to you in Dark Souls 1, I think. He says, bye friend, be safe, don't you dare go hollow, when you like end your conversation with him. So he's just saying, hey man, good luck out there, don't give up. Which is ultimately my final message to you guys. Anyways, thanks for watching guys, let me know what you think.